In this video, we're going to talk about the three forms of lines and how to write them using a graph. Now, the first form of lines, in order to write them from a graph, you need a point and a slope, and you need to write x1 and x2, or y1 and x1 as numbers. Now, slope-intercept form, y is by itself, and you need to find the slope in b either from the point on the graph, or you can change around point-slope form so that you get y isolated. Now, standard form is ax plus by equals c. Now, this time, the x and y terms are on the same side. X is first and positive, and there's no fractions. To find that from a graph, you can look at the x and y intercepts, or if they're not easy to determine because they're not pretty numbers, you can change point-slope form into standard as well. If you need help learning how to do that, see the video we were watching yesterday. Now, number one, we're going to be writing all three equations from the given graph. Now, the first one that I'm going to do would be slope-intercept, because I'm very familiar with that. Now, in slope-intercept, I need to know where the intercept is, and I need to be able to write the slope. Now, first thing you're going to do is find 2 points so that you can find the slope. I know that 2 points were not originally written for you on this line, but every time this line goes through a grid point, you can pick one of those coordinates. Now, if I'm at the intercept here, I would need to go up 3 and sideways 2 to get to my next point. Sideways 1, I apologize. So up 3, sideways 1 gives me a slope of 3. Now, my intercept is sitting at a 0, 4. So b is going to be 4. So slope-intercept form would be y equals 3x minus 4. Now, if I asked you for point-slope form, you would do the same thing. I need a point. Doesn't matter which one you use. Let's go ahead and use that one again. So if I've got the point 0, negative 4, and you need a slope, which we already know is 3, I can write point-slope form by going y minus negative 4 equals 3 times x minus 0. Now, lots of students try to solve this and get y by itself. When I ask them for point-slope form, you get to stop here. Leave the 0 in the parenthesis, leave the x in the parenthesis. This is point-slope form. Don't change it, or else you're going to change it into something else. Now, the last form that we need to work on is standard form. And in standard form, you need both intercepts. The problem that we're going to have with this line is that the x-intercept is not a pretty number. You can't really tell if it's going through the 1 or through the 2. So I can't just look at the graph like I could the other two. Now, that being said, the easiest thing to do now is to take that point-slope formula. It's my magic pen. It's going to disappear on us. Take the point-slope formula, plus 4 equals 3 times x minus, and change that to standard form. Now, as always, the first thing you're going to do is get rid of the parentheses, and you get 3 times x minus 3 times 0. Now, the 3x is already isolated, and since I want x to be positive anyway, I'm going to move the y by subtracting it. And what you end up with is a 4 equals 3x minus y here. Now, warm and fuzzy feelings usually have us writing the 3x and the y on the left and the 4 on the right, but it really doesn't matter. These are all both equally the same equation. All right, let's do an x example. Take 2. On example number 2, I'm giving you a point and a slope. So the first thing you need to do is draw your point. Then you're going to use the slope 4, 3 to make a second point. This means you're going to rise up 4 and run 3. And you end up there. Now, you can also go down 4 and negative 3, and you'll end up on the same line. Now, draw a line through all 3 of your points. There we go. Okay, now the first equation that we'll probably want to start with is slope-intercept form, because we're all familiar with that one. So, we know that the slope is 4/3. And we know that B is going to be at here at -6. So our equation would be y equals 4/3x minus 6. The next point, the point-slope form. Well, I have a point, and I already have a slope, so my point-slope form would be y minus -2 equals 4/3 times x minus 3. And we're done. Now for standard form. Now if you look at standard form, once again, we can't really see the x-intercept. It's going to go right between 2 easy grid points. So we're going to need to change one of these points. Now we usually change point-slope form, but slope-intercept form works just as well. If I'm going to start with y equals 4/3 x minus 6, the first thing we're really going to need to do is get rid of that 3 at the bottom of the fraction. So I'm going to multiply everything in the equation by 3. You end up with 3y equals, now 3 times 4/3 makes that bottom fraction go away. That was the whole point of multiplying times 3. Then you do have to multiply the 6 times 3 and you get 18. From there, the x and y need to be put on the same side. So you're going to subtract 4x from both sides. And we end up with a -4x plus 3y equals a -18. Now since the signs are all the wrong sign, because I can't have that negative in front of the 4x, I'm going to multiply everything times a -1, or flip everybody's sign. So I get a 4x minus 3y equals a positive 18. And there's standard form, point-slope form, and slope-intercept form. And number 3 is a slope-intercept form. As long as you can bounce back and forth between all 3 of these forms, you'll have no problem with your homework.